Now what we do is we, at the same time, now I'm going to use U.S. terms only because that's sort of the biggest sort of, and I know the form names.
Yes.
But so what we do is we hand them a copy of what's called a 1099 OID, and you don't need to know that. Other than what it does is it states who is issuing the credit. It's essentially stating that I am the source of the credit, not Sears.
Mm-hmm.
So, because if we just hand them our cash and we don't say who it is, they'll say that they're the source of the credit, and then they call it gets a little technical here, but they call it abandoned funds, and then the IRS won't tax them. They'll come back and tax us in order to balance its books. But that's a bit complicated. So here's the drift. So we give them certain forms. One of them is this OID, and another one is what's it called? 1099, or pardon me, a 1040V, which is a voucher, and by the definition of voucher is a payment. And so all that means, or actually it's an authorization of payment. So then you send that to the Treasury, and you give these people a copy so that they know what you're up to. You get their tax identification number, and the Treasury sets off their debt for them. And then, of course, they've got, not only do they have it set off by the Treasury, they've still got our cash, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they say, oh, now we got this cash. Well, what the IRS will do is simply go back to the company and say, okay, your debt's been set off to you, and we now know that you have somebody's cash that you're not supposed to have, so give it back, and we'll get it back for the one who bought the goods. So essentially, the purpose of the IRS is actually to track down what we have put into the public and get it back for us. But we have to be very careful to give them the correct forms in order to do that. So it really is a case of, going into the store and setting off the debt. But because nobody knows that, because they've been so programmed in school that they have to pay for everything, they presume that we have to pay for everything.
Well,
and try walking out of a store without paying for something.
Yeah, there we go.
So if you give them whatever it is they want, then you can just go back and say, look, I'll give you this, but I'll get it back from you later. Not to worry. This is not my job to educate you on commerce.
Right. But so what we kind of get back to here then is the fact that it doesn't feel like the system has been set up in order to operate, in this case, at least not for the, for the guy or gal walking down the street, so to speak. This is the system feels like it is actually designed in order to deceive us, and this gets us into the other aspect that you were talking about, that this has to do with indoctrination and that everyone just goes along what their parents taught them or whatnot. But I mean, even if we were to come up to a point where we discover this and we learn how the system works, then it feels like they would actually just change the system into something else in order to sustain the control over us, if you know where I'm going with this, so to speak. Do you follow me?
I do. Now, and this is the problem we've been having for so long, up until recently, and that is that what we have been doing, like let's go back to Sears and the lawnmower, and if they did it properly, and I know they're not, but we'll get to that, they would hand me a bill, and I would sign it. That is the proper way to do it. But the fact that they're not, yes, and it's more insidious than all that. I mean, what we've been doing with those bills or receipts, like let's just say the electric bill. So we write on it, accepted for value, which means I accept your charge, no skin off my nose. I accept what you're saying. You're saying I owe you $100. That's okay. I'll accept it, I'll sign it, and I'll give it back to you. Now, what's been happening? Here's where we went wrong. What's been happening is they've realized that is credit, and they've been stealing it from us. And we haven't had any recourse to go back in and say, hey, you stole my credit. And, of course, then you get another bill from the electric company saying you didn't pay us. And we're saying, oh, yes, I did. I accepted your bill, and I even gave you my signature, which means you should have gotten paid. But we weren't really clear on who was doing the set-off. So what was happening is we were giving them our credit, and they were winning, and we had no way to say, hey, wait a minute. So that's why what we're doing now is saying, yep, I accept your charge, here's my signature, and here's the IRS forms, so that you know that I'm going to go tell the IRS that I paid you with my signature. I'm going to send this document to the Treasury so that the Treasury will set off your debt, and I'm going to let the IRS know that I've done this. Now do you want to try stealing my credit? No, I didn't think so. And that's what's stopping it. Now, if for some reason they still think they can do this, what we're doing is, and I don't speak for myself, I have yet to do this, but people are filing commercial liens against these corporations who are stealing our credit and not essentially balancing their books. They're still coming back after us for the credit. And by the way, the best way to access this Treasury account is via what we call here in the provinces the Social Insurance Number, and what they call in the States the Social Security Number. And so I don't know what your socialist number is called over there. But that's the number that we sign with. In other words, when we write on a bill accepted for value, and then you sign it, and then you put that number and you send it to the Treasury says, okay, this is a real account. I can see that the name and the number match, so that's a real account. So we'll go into this unlimited credit account and offset the public debt for that corporation, or the electric bill, or whatever it is.
Yes.
And so that's how they know. So in a sense, that what we call a social insurance number, truly is an insurance policy. That think of if I ran into the back of you with my car, you'd want to know my insurance policy number, right?
Yes.
Well, of course, my question has always been, why do we need separate auto insurance when we already have a public hazard social insurance number? So all I really need to give you is that government number, and then you should be able to access my unlimited credit from the Treasury account and get your car handled. So they're not honoring that social insurance number would be the same as you're getting my insurance policy number from me after I smacked up your car, and you're going to the insurance company and saying, oh, well, Mary crashed into my car. Here's the number. Here's my claim. Pay me. And the insurance company saying, no. Then what would you do? You'd come back to me and you would say, pay me. And I'd say, I already told you who's going to pay you. I gave you the number. I gave you the company. I gave you everything you need. Are you trying to tell me that my insurance company didn't pay your claim? And you're saying yes. And so now what do I have to do? I have to go after the insurance company, right? So that's kind of what's happening. Let's just say with a traffic ticket. You get a traffic ticket and you accept it and you sign it and you put your social insurance number on it, whatever your socialist number is, and then what happens is the traffic guy or the court, the cops, they say, you didn't pay. And then, so our recourse is to say, well, I gave you the number of the insurance policy. Did you contact them? Are you saying that you didn't do that? Yeah. Or are you saying that they declined to pay you? Well, chances are the insurance company didn't decline. It's more likely that you did not go to the insurance company because you're hoping to soak me. So if you can use that as an analogy, you can see how absurd it is.
Yes.
So it'd be the same as you're calling me saying, well, your insurance company wouldn't pay, so now I'm coming after you. You think I'm going to pay you? No! Hey, your problem is with the insurance company. My premiums are paid. Now you've got a problem. So that's what we have to say to the courts, is did you access my Treasury account? Well, they're not going to say no, but they will continue to come after us. And, of course, our point is why are you bothering me? I gave you the number. I told you how to get paid.
Yeah.
So too many people are forking over their labor when, in fact, they don't have to. They simply have to say, hey, I gave you the number of the account. Did you go to the Treasury? But see, the real drift is it's not that they actually have to go to the Treasury, and this is why I'm talking about this latest information. What we have to do is authorize the Treasury to offset their account, to set off their debt for them. So we were actually missing a very valuable step. We were sort of saying, here's my my account, away you go. And now we're saying, no, they'll steal it and still come back on us. So now we're saying, give me your tax ID number. Here's the forms. I'm sending the forms to the IRS. I'm going to authorize the Treasury to pay you, and the IRS is going to know that I paid you, and they're going to come back after you for it. Kind of like, are you sure you want to do this?
And you are looking into a way to do this then, and a consequence of this. I mean, what would that be? If let's say that everyone did this, would this imply that the system actually would kind of self-implode on itself, or once the cat is out of the bag, so to speak, and everyone knows this, the system wouldn't be able to sustain itself anymore? What do you think?
No, it would start to act smoothly. And by the way, just and I write this in my book too. I don't know if you're familiar with the Mayan calendar, but it's quite fascinating. I used to think it had something to do with dates. It doesn't, or that it measured time. It doesn't. It measures creation. But this year, 2008, is what they call the fifth night. And the fifth night is the end of manufactured lack, which, boy, what a tip-off that is. I could never figure that out 5 years ago. I thought, I wonder what that's going to look like.
Yes.
Now we know what it's going to look like. People are going to start obeying commercial code because we're going to stick them to it. So in other words, when you say what's going to happen, it'll start running smoothly. There won't be people with no money and losing their houses because we now know how to essentially pay off the banks by telling them, hey, you stole my credit, you owe me, not the other way around.
So wait a minute, Mary, this is very interesting. So what you're saying here is that the system then would actually work in a more, in a more balanced and harmonious, so to speak, way if this were truly followed to the standards that it was initially set up to be. Is that correct?
Yes. What I wrote in my book is that we live in a system that was designed not to work, and that's actually not true. See if I could go back and rewrite it. Right? We actually live within a system that was designed to work. Everything is in place for this to work properly. What's happened is we've gotten some rogue agents in there, mostly because they've been so programmed and brainwashed that they fell for the party line, which was everybody has to earn his living and pay his own way, and it simply isn't true. We're the ones who own the planet, so to speak. You can't own a planet, but
sure.
We're the ones in charge. And these rubby little bankers just simply had a scathingly brilliant idea on how to enslave the people of the planet.
So this is a way for them, for those who set up the banks and so forth. This is a way for them to kind of hijack, if you will, an existing system and kind of applying a different layer, so to speak, on top of that system that was set up to initially to begin with. And in order, when they do that, I should say, they manage to get rich themselves of the system and consequently also maintain or gain, I guess, control over, nations. I guess we can say at this point, right? Yes.
And the reason is I spell this out in my most recent article, which is called The Two Accounting Systems. It's kind of weird, and it has to do with the fact that cash is debt, but corporations see it as credit, but in fact it doubles the debt. But keep in mind the board of directors want the cash because they use cash the same way we do. So it's kind of like the corporation is what twists things. If you and I pay our electric bill to ABC Electric and we pay in cash, what we've actually done is give ABC more debt instead of paying off the debt that they created, like the bill that we get.
Yes.
We've actually doubled the debt. But because they perceive, let me rephrase that. It's not what the corporation wants. Is double the debt. The corporation doesn't want to double debt. But keep in mind, corporations can't show a profit.